Hey guys, happy day before Thanksgiving. It is November 26th and I have 33 years clean today. So to celebrate that and to stick to my goal of 30 videos in 30 days, I'm going to record a video for you guys about shame. What I have to say about shame is that it is a freaking sham. It is garbage. And I'm going to tell you why, okay? Here's why. Well, there are a lot of reasons why, but I'm going to start with this. You know the main problem with shame, right? I mean, besides the fact that it is utterly debilitating and it keeps you hostage to a past that literally no longer exists. It's often no more than a lie that somebody else told you that you believed, and then you perpetuated through that belief and through your actions and through your perceptions of how other people think about you. And I'm asking you to please stop doing that to yourself. So before I go any further about how to dismantle the stories behind your shame, I want to talk to you about something that often gets mistaken for shame. And it's not guilt, it's regret. Now, the way that I see regret is that it actually serves a purpose. Like, it's an appropriate reaction when you've had a misstep or made a mistake. And we all make mistakes, right? So you've taken a wrong turn, or you've chosen the path of least resistance, or you've hurt someone that you love. When you pair your regret with reality, it doesn't hold power over you the way that shame does. Okay, so let's make sure that we're not confusing shame and regret, right? Okay, so let's get back to shame. Here's the thing with shame, and I know this from my own experience because, as I've shared before, and I'm going to be sharing bits and pieces of my story here on my channel because I want you to know that I know what I'm talking about, number one, but number two, that I've experienced the things that you've experienced. And I've found a way to heal from those experiences. And I've developed processes to continue the journey of healing. So I, unfortunately, was the victim of childhood sexual abuse inside my family, and not just by one family member. And for several years, I don't know the exact years because even though I've done a lot of work around that part of my life, I still have like timeline lapses, and I've regained a lot of the memory that I repressed as a survival mechanism. But one thing that hasn't come back completely clearly is the timelines. And so I'm not really sure. I can't say, it happened from the time I was this age to that age. I can say that my first solid memory is of being molested by a family member. And also, that's when that happens, it's there are a lot of things that go on inside a child's mind and spirit and body, right? And I mean, just our physiology changes, and the way that we show up in the world is changed from what it would have been if that hadn't happened. And I learned early on to be fearful and shameful, and shame was used as a tool to keep me quiet and afraid. And when you're that small, it just becomes ingrained in your personality, and we sublimate it. I sublimated it. I survived it. I compartmentalized it. And everything that I did was perfect to survive it. None of it was a mistake. None of it was bad or wrong, right? But I only know that now because as an adult, I decided to take control of my healing. And when I got older, I'd had some other instances of different kinds of abuse and neglect and abandonment. And this isn't my way of blaming my family or my parents. It's just how it was. That's just the reality of it. And so I experienced some sexual assaults as a teenager And as a result, I felt terrible about myself. And that stems from shame, right? And all the choices I made behind the abuse and the assault, the choices that I made as a young person, just piled on the shame, because even when those things weren't happening or the abuse had stopped, I continued the story of my shame myself. And that's what shame does. Back to basics, I guess. Shame operates at the core of your identity, the way you see yourself. And as I said, as the way you perceive that the world sees you. So you think that the world can see through the facade, or see that you're bad, or that you're filled with shame. And unfortunately for us, shame distorts reality. It's not paired with reality, it distorts reality, and it's very sticky and tenacious, and it fuses the edges of that pain together. So there's really no room between those fused together edges to let any kind of healing or light or healthy behaviors in. It's just kind of stuck together, shame against shame. So what I want you to do now is make a decision. Decide that shame is no longer at the core of what you believe about yourself. And we know that whoever put that lie or those feelings on you, whether it was a teacher or a parent or another family member or a friend, or something happened along the way that made you feel that shame inside your body. And so now it's high time that you stop giving your power to that person or those people who lied to you about yourself. You get to reject that and say, what I know to be true for me is that I'm a good person, I'm kind, I care about people, and refuse now to carry on the legacy of shame and lies about me. So I literally want you to grab those lies by the short hairs and yank it into broad daylight where you can take an honest look at it. When you do that, shame and secrets, on the whole, they sort of fizzle and die in the light, right? That is why we do shadow work. We want to pull all those dark thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that we've either sublimated or that we just react out of into the light of our consciousness, so that we can be free of them. And the way that we release any kind of shadow is not some big production. It's actually really simple. You pull those thoughts and those feelings right out into the light, and you look at them, and you be honest, and you stand in your truth and in your reality. And when you do that, they literally dissolve. And it sounds like oversimplified, but I know from years and years of doing this work myself, on my own shadows and my own shame, that it's not a bunch of hooey. It's not that it's easy either. It's actually just a really simple formula. But what happens is it can be a painful process, and that's why, if you're in the very beginning stages of doing this work, I really highly recommend not doing it by yourself. I highly suggest that you do it with a trained therapist, which I'm not. I'm a coach, not a therapist. And I know the value of having that kind of support and doing it inside a really safe container-like therapy. And so I do recommend that if you're just starting this pathway. But if, like me, you've been doing your inside work for a really long time, it's okay to do it with, a spouse or a friend or a coach, because you've already peeled away a lot of those layers and you sort of have a firm foundation. And you do need that if you haven't started at the beginning. Like, I call my coaching second stage recovery, because typically the people that I work with have been clean or in recovery of some kind for a lot of times years and years or decades. And so they've done a lot of work, and like I said, they have a foundation. So I do recommend that. But if you have done a lot of reading and journaling and all the things that you hear, I want to tell you that this process isn't, it doesn't have to be super lengthy. It doesn't have to be something that you do from here until the time, you're 90 years old. I know that it's a really popular idea that healing is something that just goes on and on and on and on, and you just peel layers away and layers and layers, and that's fine. I'm not saying there's anything at all wrong with that. What I am saying is that when you learn how to do shadow work in the simplest, most pared down way, I mean, yes, we can go into Carl Jung and the archetypes and individuation and all of the things that he teaches or taught, because he's no longer with us. You can study his methods, you can, take college courses, you can do all these things, right? But the truth is that it doesn't have to be the longest process ever for it to be effective, and I think sometimes when people work on themselves, they want it to seem really hard and arduous because, there's sort of a romanticism about that. I've just worked so hard on this. But the truth is that once you start dragging these shadows, including shame, into the light, and they become at the forefront of your consciousness, and you've told the truth about who you really are, and you've stopped buying into the lie of shame, it dissolves. It dissolves. You don't have to keep working on it and keep working on it and keep working on it. Sometimes things do come up more than one time, and that's okay, but then you'll have the tools, right? You know how to drag this nasty lie into or this dark shadow that you've buried into the light of your consciousness. And there are techniques, but they're not complicated, and they're not time consuming. Once you learn how to do this work, you don't have to take 3 months off work, or it's just something that it's like a muscle. You learn how to use it effectively. And so that is one reason that I definitely wanted to talk about shame, because a lot of us carry that around with us like like we're on the railroad and we're just carrying our bag around, and it's ours and we want to keep it, and it's just part of who we are. But the problem with that is that it stunts our growth, or it works at the core of who we are, even though it's a lie, right? And it infects our relationships. It infects our ability to be who we want to be in this world, and it's painful. Who wants to walk around with that? And we don't have to walk around suffering and in pain. There are things that we can do to release these stories, and there are things that we can do to live happy, whole lives, knowing that we're perfect just the way we are. That doesn't mean we're perfect. You know what it means, though. You know what I'm trying to say. Listen, once you're on the other side of shame and the way that it's affected your life and silenced you, you'll finally experience a life filled with meaning, abundance, and have those better relationships. So I know this because I've done the work, and I've been second stage, or the second phase, whatever you want to call it, is the most rewarding and exciting thing that we can do for ourselves. And honestly, it's time to let that shame go. And if you're anything like me, and you've been doing some healing work, or you've been sober, or whatever it is that you're doing to make your life better for you, know that it's time to let go of these BS stories, right? Anyway, that is my take on shame for today, and I wanted to just come on here and say a little bit about that. And if anything I said had any value, please like and subscribe this video. Like I said, I'm committed to doing 30 videos in 30 days. This is day number 2, so I'm still at the beginning. I still am having some resistance around it, so this is my practice of showing up no matter what, even when it's not easy. Okay, and I have some links in the description for my blog, and I have a free giveaway. There are 5 steps to being happier now, and you'll see it in the description. And that's about it. Okay, I love you guys, and we'll talk soon. Okay, take care. Bye.